Hello, my name is Zach, also known as Dumbird, and today I'm going to be doing a quick short video on how to make a mod uh, in Godot using the mod loader. This is specifically for 4.4, but I guess it works on any version. Essentially, you just have to download the right version of the mod loader. I'm making this specifically at the request of somebody in the Dead Sea Discord server, just as a video reference. And this is what we're kind of going to be following today, the Godot Mod Loader wiki. Very useful resource, and because this video, for sake of brevity, is not going to be touching over advanced subjects in modding, I would recommend you come here. And by advanced subjects, I don't mean anything crazy. What I do mean is just, I'm not going to be touching over translation files or script hooks, but I will be talking about script extensions and also overwrites. Alright, so I guess we'll just hop into it. So if you come onto the wiki and you scroll down here, you're actually going to see a page for getting started as a mod developer. Now, before we start this tutorial, I'm going to say, if you don't know anything about GDScript or Godot, go ahead and jump over to any tutorial video, although I recommend that you use the Learn GDScript from Zero by GDQuest. It's an interactive course. It's text-based. If you're not into that, there's also Bracky's YouTube video. And you can see that if I were to just jump over here, that this covers, a bunch of stuff. And like I said, totally interactive. You follow through the whole entire thing. So, it's nice. So your first thing is going to be decompile the game. And let's just go ahead and do that. So you're going to be using something called GDRE. You can just go up over to the release page, come down to the releases here, and then go ahead and download it for Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. This is my Windows VM, so I'm going to actually get Windows here. However, I already have it installed, so once you have it installed, you can just do GDRE and open that bad boy up. Your next step is going to be to open Steam, because we actually got to go to whatever game. If your game isn't on Steam, just get the area to wherever your exe or PCK is, preferably PCK. Go ahead and jump over. For me, I'm going to do the Dead Sea. And then go over to the cogwheel, the Manage button, and then Browse Local Files. Alright, so I already have some mods here for this game, but I'm just not going to worry about that. Grab PCK. Boom. Now, depending on the version of GDRE that you are on, there is a bug. Now, for this release candidate, there is a bug where you have a 0-byte file. And if you do not deselect this file, it will not decompile properly. Make sure in the bottom here it says full recovery, not just extract only. And then select wherever you want it to go. I'm just going to do my desktop. Alright, so once you have this done, it's actually going to tell you to use a specific Godot editor version. If you click on that link, it'll bring you straight to one, and you can just go ahead and download it. There is a lot here. Don't let it confuse you. You're essentially just looking for this column here. Let's say if I'm on Linux, I'll look at Linux. Am I on 64 or 32-bit? If I'm on Windows, scroll down. Oh, am I on Windows 32-bit or 64-bit? You're probably on 64-bit if you don't know. So go ahead and click that. Make sure that you just get the stable and not the mono versions. Simply because the game is, or unless your game is built with mono, that is. Specifically for the Dead Sea, it's not though. So then you're going to go ahead and open these up in your editor. However, I'm not going to be doing it here. I'm actually going to be using a tool called Godot that I have to go ahead and launch a new editor. So I'm going to import, and then let's go to desktop, and we'll go to the Dead Sea and project. Let's go ahead and import and edit that. Alright, so now, depending on your game, if it already has modding support, you might already have the mod loader and all its plugins. And if you don't worry. We can just go ahead and hop over to this again, and let's actually go to the top, and you see there's the mod loader here. There's also the mod dev tool, which I totally recommend. However, we're not really going to be following the mod tools setup for this video. We're just going to be writing it from scratch. And mod loader here. Jump onto this, and you can see there's a couple things. So this is the most up-to-date version, so you can actually just come to this release and scroll down to here, and then download this. And once you do actually download this, you can just come here, add-ons, and put those add-ons in your add-ons folder. Otherwise, if you're on a version like 3.x, go here, or if you're on specific 4.0 versions, such as 4.1 and or 4.0, then you're going to have to jump over to those branches and then download them by pressing code, download zip, and it's the exact same process of just going into it and getting these add-ons. For the mod tool, it's exactly the same thing. Just make sure you follow this. So if you're on 3.x, just get this version. If you're on 4.x, you must download this branch. And same thing, add-on right there. So it's really simple to install. Once that's all set up now, we actually have to make sure our mod loader gets loaded if it's not already. Once again, for the dead seed it is, so I don't need to care. But you see that we have these two things here, mod loader store and mod loader. And to add these entries into your auto loads, because they won't be there normally, go ahead and click on this folder button here, and then go to add-ons, mod loader, select mod loader GD. You're going to get this little prompt here or whatever. Just press add, and that's going to add your mod loader store or your mod loader. It'll be down at the bottom. Make sure you drag this to the top, and then do the same thing for your mod loader store as well, and then add and drag it to the top. In my case, though, it's set up so Steam API does run first before these, but in most games, you're going to want to have these on the top. Awesome. So there's that. Your mod loader is all set up. Your mod tool is all set up. The mod tool might actually not be enabled by default. If it's not, go to project settings, plugins, and then enable it here. Oh, all right. So now we actually have to start writing the mod. So to start us off, let's make the distinction between mods. There's two types of mods. There's packed mods and there's unpacked. Packed mods are zip filed, or just mods that are in zip files, and those are typically what you're distributing to your Steam workshop, and you'll almost always be using this guy to export those. For developing mods, it is a much better idea to use a mods and packed folder. However, if you want to use packed mods and place them in here as well, you can just make a mods folder. All right, so mods unpacked. What you're going to do is to create your actual mod, the way that mods are set up is, at least the folder naming, is that you have the namespace and then you have the mod name. Now, namespace doesn't have to be anything complex. It can literally just be your name. And that's what most people do, is the main author is the name. Although if it's like some studio making it, you could do studio or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. The world is your oyster, truly. And then you do a dash or a hyphen, whatever, and then you're going to do your mod name. So I'm just going to do example mod. All right, so now that we're here, we're actually having to create a couple folders. We're going to need to make a mod main.gd. And we're also going to need to create a manifest.json. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the documentation here, because this will make our life a bit easier. Wherever it is. Hello. Okay. Jump over to here and mod files. I'm just going to be copying these as a baseline because I don't feel like typing them all out. However, we will review them. Awesome. All right, so first of all, let's review the manifest.json. If you don't know what JSON is, it's a format for storing data. And it's not that complex to learn. However, even if you don't know it, you shouldn't need to learn anything to really get started here. So your name is the name of the mod, and namespace is what we chose down here. These have to be the name of this folder. They have to match it. So if I have Zachary Smith example mod here, if this was awesome and then this was not cool, this mod wouldn't run because this manifest must match the directory structure. So example mod, and the author is Zachary Smith. Version has to be in this semantic style. It has to be the major, what is it? Minor and patch, I think it is. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but any major changes would increase this value. Any, like, I guess minor would be here, and any like patches for bugs would go here. You don't necessarily need to follow that, although that's just a good thing for mod development. Mod description, well, that's pretty obvious. We'll just do example mod for the Godot Mod Loader. And for the website URL, this is actually not a required field unless you have a website URL. Typically, it's like a GitHub page. Dependencies, if you want to have a dependency, although I won't be going over this here, you can do something like Zachary R. Smith, like tooling library or something. And if it's not installed, the mod loader will get out you, essentially. So authors here, this would be if you had multiple authors. You can put yourself here if you wanted to again, but I just find it a bit redundant. It was very useful if you have multiple authors, though. Tags, these are tags for your mod, although I'm not going to use those, so I'm just going to delete that. Description rich, this is where you can put like BB code, although like doesn't really matter. For example, I will do like color, or no, we'll do rainbow. And I'll show you what this does later when we actually load the mod. All right. Optional dependencies, once again, we don't need it. It's the exact same thing as this. Loading before other mods, once again, we don't need it. Incompatibilities, there's nothing our mod's incompatible with, so you can just delete that. And compatible game version, this isn't even checked, and will at some point, but for right now it isn't. So I'm just going to set it to 0, 0. This is important, somewhat. I'm just going to set the version that we're on, which would be 0.1. There's that. And config schema is how you make configs for your mod, although it's kind of a more touchy subject, so go ahead and check the documentation for that. There's an entire section dedicated to it, so go ahead and read that if you want a config. All right, so that's our manifest JSON out of the way. I hope that's relatively easy to understand. Let's jump down to our mod main here, and if you've never read GD code before, you might be out of your mind, and if you have, this is relatively simple, right? So let's first cover some things here. These two variables, we have Godot modding, example mod directory. Now, why is this so verbose? Well, the reason it's verbose is because if another mod, let's say, for example, we just did mod directory instead of doing this whole thing. Now, any mod that's trying to extend our mod in some way or trying to, let's say we make a mod and somebody wants to extend it, or let's say we make a mod and somebody uses that as a dependency, and in those cases, your mod will not be able, or the mod that's depending on your mod will not be able to use this variable anymore. So it's always just recommended that if you're making a mod, that you just do the namespace of your mod, and then the name of your mod, so example mod. And then obviously if that has to follow over here, this has to be the folder name. So Zachary R. Smith -example mod. And we can just clone this. Now this here is, this second line is not like anything crucial. This doesn't even need to be the proper namespace, although it should be. And then main. This is just for logging, so that whenever you're like wanting to yell at the console here saying that there's an error or something, or there's a warning, then it will say, or it'll prefix with this main some warning message. So there's that. All right, so now jumping down here, let's go ahead and fix our variables just by renaming them. Awesome. So now this should work right off the bat if we actually were to run the game. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and now we're getting an error about Steam. Now, this is going to happen if you're not using the Godot Steam client. So a lot of people when developing Godot games are using Godot Steam. Because there's two versions. There's the extension, the add-on, and then there's also the entire client replacement. So I don't like to replace my entire client like that. It's kind of annoying. So I'm going to get the Godot Steam add-on. So we can actually just do that by jumping here, scrolling down, Godot Steam, jumping down to the versions. Know what version of game you're running. For me, it's obviously the most latest, 4.4.1. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one. If you click on releases and you just see like a single release, go up in this top left and press releases. And what you're going to try to find is the GD extension version, unless you want to download the separate client, which you totally can do. That's totally viable. But I like the extension. So if you're on 4.1 to 4.3, you can get that. If you're on 4.4, get this one. All right, let's go ahead and let Godot get that all dealt with, and now we can run this. And we can see at the bottom here, an error. Missing required mod manifested. Oh, did I spell it wrong? I did in fact spell it wrong. So let's just go ahead and fix that. And then we can go ahead and rerun. Alright, and now you can see our example mod main ready, and if we were to check our mod main again, you can see right here in ready, the ready function, we have a ready info log. Awesome, so that is essentially your first mod. Now, this isn't all of it, though. Obviously, we have some stuff here. We have translations and script hooks. Once again, I'm not going to be worrying about translations or script hooks. Script hooks aren't required for the Dead Sea, like, at all. There's barely any class names, period. I think there's, like, 1 or 2 in the entire project. In your game, when there's class extensions, you can't do script extensions. If you do something like class name here to make a script available under a class name, then you must use script hooks because script extensions won't work. And so now, what we're going to want to do is in our install script extensions here. Well, actually, before we do that, let me talk a little bit about script extensions. So script extensions are relatively simple at core. If you don't know, you can extend, obviously you extend nodes. You can extend a ton of different types in Godot, right? I mean, node 3D and a control node, right? Like you can essentially extend any of the nodes. However, you can also extend a file, or extend, in this case, it's script file. And you can do that by just doing like this, res auto global, for example. So this is obviously dependent on your game, but you can see now we're actually extending this. And this is the kind of one of the core principles of script extensions. Now, the way that script extensions are typically set up is in your mod, create a new folder called extensions. Now, everything under this extension folder is going to match the structure of the game. So imagine this extensions directory is the the very top directory. So let's say we want to modify autoload and global.gd. Well, we'd have to make a new folder in here and call it autoload. And then global.gd. Now, this is not required by any means. This isn't enforced. The only thing that's actually enforced is that the path that's set up here is the right one. This is all that actually matters at the end of the day. So as long as this is correct, it's fine. However, the reason that this is the standard is because it makes it super easy to jump around between your mod and the actual games files and kind of know what's going on. It's more clear, per se, rather than just having autoload here or global here for some reason. All right, so now that we have that, we can actually go ahead and modify this a bit. So let's say I just want to modify the ready function of the global. So what I'm just going to do is do func for function and ready. And for right now, we'll just pass. And you'll see when you're actually superseding a script or function like this, you'll see that you get this blue little reference button. And if you click it, you can actually see it brings you to the original function. This is how you know you're properly superseding. And you can see this brings you to the node. Now, when superseding a function, you must always call super before or after your function. So if you want to run your code, so this will be print, this is runs before global.gd. And we'll just do. And then this is going to run after. So, boom, right, awesome. This is how superseding works. When you do this, this calls the original function. If you do not call this, it will not call the function, period. However, in a lot of cases, this will cause weird behavior. Unless you're specifically trying to override a function for some reason, which you shouldn't really do if you can avoid it, then you can go in and actually delete it by doing this. Although, when there's different mods that are trying to do the same sort of principle, there's a chance that your mod won't even be able to get ran if you're doing code in the ready function if somebody else does this. So it's a collision issue that can happen, and it's just not generally recommended. So this is essentially this, whatever. Let's just call super, and instead of doing any of what we were going to do, or anything that we were going to do, let's do mod loader log dot info. Message will be inside global.gd ready. And actually we will just do before, and then we'll do after. We're gonna get some errors here. That's because whenever you use the mod loader log, whether that be mod loader log debug or error or fatal or warning or whatever it may be, it actually needs a second argument, and that's that one we were talking about before that in our mod main, that's this one. So I'm actually just going to copy this over, and instead of calling this main, I'm just going to call it global. So this obviously doesn't matter what your name is. You could name it literally anything. I'm just going to do that. And now I can do this. And I can do this here. Now we're not done just yet. Before we finish this, what we're going to have to do is jump to our mod main. And when you go to the install script extensions function, and you're going to want to do mod loader mod install extension, script extension. And then here you're going to want to do extensions dir path dot path join. And then the path from extensions to wherever your autoload is. So in my case, that would be, or wherever your script is. So autoload global.gd. Boom. Now let's go ahead and run this. And you're going to see here, this is running before our global.gd, and this is running after. You can even see that there's some printing happening in our global. So let's actually see if we were to jump here, somewhere in here. Yeah, actually, let's just run a print function. Say print, I'm in my ready era. And you can see that this is before, in my ready era, it does its own things. And then you see that we're in already there. So that's script extensions. From here, you can actually modify any variables that are inside of the game. So for example, right now, or well, let's just say for this game I'm modding, there's a debug keys option. This allows for a lot of things like speed ups and so on like that. Let's go ahead and enable that through our mod. So what we'll do is just do, I think it was, what was it? Just do debug keys enabled equals true. And that's it. This is literally superseding the function. So any variables or any methods that this script has, you can modify or use. Let's say if I wanted to run get jump scare duration for some reason, I could simply just do get jump scare duration. All right, but anyways, our mod now enables debug keys. So if I were to start the game, and if I were to press G to speed up the game, for example, you can see the game's all sped up. And you can also see our example mod here. Alright, so that's essentially how you make a mod. Oh, I guess we should probably cover overwrites too, huh? Let's do that. So in our main folder here, let's go ahead and create a new script, and we'll call it overwrites. Overwrites.gd. And here, make a function, call it init, and we'll just pass for now. Actually, no. Yeah. Let's go and find a resource to overwrite. However, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this overwrites. And now this is where you'll put the same sort of structure as your extensions, but for overwrites now. I don't necessarily know what I want to do for an overwrite. Here, let's just find a random MP3 file. One that's probably... Actually, no, here. I think the menu... Is this it? I think this is the main menu. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to open in file manager here. Main menu music. I'm going to go ahead and open this with... Alright, I'll just do this. Audacity. Now this is specifically for music, but this works for anything, even Blender files like Blend and GLBs, same thing. I guess I don't even necessarily need a reference. I'll just do this instead. This is some serious awesome sauce. There's nothing better. This is main menu music, and it just keeps getting wetter. Boom, bars, all right? All right, so let's go ahead and export this now. Sure, we'll just do that. That's fine. Here, actually, no, we'll do this instead. Desktop. Save it there. Awesome. So there's that. And if we check the directory of this is going to be in, let's see here, SFX and just menu music. So we'll go to our overwrites, SFX, put that in there. And you also don't need to name it the same thing, but once again, it's one of those things where it's very clear what you're overwriting if you do it this way. Because there might be multiple main menu or menu music WOBs around. All right, so now we'll just copy the path of this. And what you're going to do is do overwrite equals load, and you're going to load in your overwrite, and yeah, we'll do it that way. And then you can just do overwrite dot take over path, and then do the path of the original sound effect. So this is the right one, right? And we'll go in and copy path and do that. Boom. And now if we just go ahead and run this, I'm out here looking like a clown. Let's make sure that this is actually running. I'm wondering if it's because it's a WAV file here, because I know that Godot on WAV files has some small issues. Initialize overwrite scripts. Oh, it's because it's not a WAV, it's an MP3. Whoopsies. Alright, so now I can actually go ahead and do this properly. SFX. Main menu music.mp3. Right to take over path. Gang, what? All right, good time to look at the documentation. All right, all right, all right. Wiki mod. It's because I'm not preloading it. Do you really? Oh, I guess because if you need to use load, you need to put it up in an external. So yeah, so it goes to global scope. This is some serious awesome sauce. There's nothing better. This is main menu music, and it just keeps getting wetter. All right, so you can see that works. If you are to use load here, you actually need to create an array at the top here, like overwrites. And this is just a Godot issue being kind of weird. I'm sure that I think it's the garbage collector probably being weird. But this pushes it to global scope, and then you can run it. This is some serious awesome sauce. And once again, if I were to delete that, it would stop working again. All right, so that's how you overwrite this. That array trick, it might seem kind of useless at first, but if you're trying to dynamically load overwrites, for example, which I do in a lot of my mods, then you're going to have to use an array system like this. So that was just useful to point out. And I guess that's really it. Once again, this works for all resource files, scripts. I mean, you shouldn't do script to do script extensions if you're going to do it that way, but fonts. Oh, fonts, music files, video files, textures, Blender files, like Trez, icons, SVG. This is literally all of it. All right, so there's that. Essentially, there's nothing more to making a mod. There is some other concepts like making your mod work as a dependency. Like I said, script extensions and translation files. However, read the documentation. It's pretty clear and concise on all of those topics. That's been this video, and have yourself a good day.